Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to discuss whether the time has come for Labour to issue its second confidence vote in a Prime Minister within the space of a few months. Truss has sealed her fate this week, basically. She'll not last until the next election. So is there political benefit in Labour pressing the issue sooner rather than later? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. Right, so I did say politics would get very spicy this week, didn't I? At the weekend, I said that with Parliament getting back to work after months of recess, that's when we'd see the real politicking, because MPs could meet in person to discuss what they wanted to do. I also said that we'd see signs of the end when prominent Tory MPs called for Truss to go in public. Never mind unattributable quotes in the media, that's just disgruntled MPs blowing off steam to journalists. No. We needed to see someone nail their colours to the mast, and that someone needed to be reasonably influential. Julian Smith is a former chief whip for the Conservatives. He tweeted a pretty clear sign, as clear as you could expect, that he was signalling to his colleagues that the time to talk about the leadership had come. It doesn't mean a load of MPs are going to suddenly follow his lead and put their letters into Sir Graham Brady, but he would not have tweeted this as a lone voice either. There was also talk of a major U-turn announcement from the government as well. The markets reacted positively. They continue to react positively, even though at the time of recording this, the announcement has not been made. The government did nothing to stop the rumours as well, so they were willfully allowing them to circulate. Now, if no announcement comes, I mean, by the time this video comes out, hopefully it would have already come out, but time of recording not. But if they don't, if the government will just say, don't know what you're on about, mate, we're not U-turning, that will mean very, very bad headlines when the market reacts negatively next week. So there's no way they're going to allow that to happen. So there has to be some sort of announcement. Kwarteng was still in the USA yesterday, though he did not attend the main IMF meeting, getting someone to deputise for him instead. He's come home early, basically, so he's in the country at the moment, as far as I know. But at the time, as I say, of recording this, which is unfortunately several hours before publication as necessary, the announcement has still not come, but it must be. The feeling is that the effective cut in the corporation tax is going to be reversed. That's likely to be the main one. You can't rule out the government just abandoning the whole uncosted tax cuts altogether, but Truss is probably not ready for that just yet. But even if the next U-turn is just on the corporation tax, that's big enough. That means Truss is finished. Gone. Forget it. That's it. Her credibility is unrecoverable, and I'll explain why this is. Consider what Truss stood for. She stood for tax cuts leading to growth. Oh, we cut the taxes for businesses and the wealthy and they'll invest more and that's how we get growth. She spent the entire leadership campaign trashing the record of her predecessors and saying that only these tax cuts could deliver the growth we needed. Oh, yeah, cost of living, yeah, no problem. Oh, global downturn, yeah, it's still going to be done. That was the only way to avoid recession, she said. So if she now raises the corporation tax, her central policy is gone. But also consider this. If she U-turns on that policy, ask yourself why she's U-turning. To steady the markets? All the markets want is a costed budget from the government. That's it. City traders, they're not like ordinary members of the public. They don't really care whether the economic policies are good or bad as such, as long as they're calculated. Balance the books and the markets are happy. That's all they want. All Truss and Kwarteng had to do was publish a budget where outgoings matched income with maybe a reasonable amount of borrowing, and they were golden. All these right-wing commentators moaning about the tax cuts, it's got nothing to do with the tax cuts. It's the fact that the tax cuts aren't costed. You haven't said how you're going to pay for them. And so that's all they had to do. The public may not have liked it still, but the markets would be delighted. If Truss U-turns on the corporation tax, and as I say, she may well have done by the time this video goes out, what she's saying is that she and Kwarteng couldn't actually balance their budget. She's not saying she's changed her mind on whether they'd be good or not. She's just accepting that she can't go through with it. She's saying, you're asking me for a balanced budget that costs these tax cuts. I can't give it to you. That's what she's saying. What's more, it means they never had any intention of balancing the books. How can a Prime Minister continue after being caught trying to present a budget where there was no intention of balancing the books? Her only chance, and it's not a credible one, but it's the only one she can do, blame Kwarteng, sack him, get a credible Chancellor in place pretty quickly. And this may be indeed what happens. Kwarteng would have to accept the role of sacrificial lamb for it to work, because if he goes shooting his mouth off about what really happened behind the scenes in an act of spite, that's not going to help Truss avoid the damage, or the Tories. But is it time for Labour to ramp up the pressure even more? See, people are often very quick to argue that the leader of the opposition should call for a confidence vote as soon as the government wobbles. But you have to be wary. You know, such a motion forces the government's MPs to rally behind their leader, as the alternative is an act of massive disloyalty and you risk a general election. So it's only a politically good move if the main opposition party want MPs to back the government. Now might be such a time. Regardless of the anguish that Labour MPs are expressing about the behaviour of the government right now, they are surely privately delighted that Truss is handing them the keys to government on a plate. The latest polling says that only 9% of the public approve of Liz Truss as Prime Minister. That's an unprecedented low for a Prime Minister since polling began. And her policies are voter repellent, her government's toxic. And the latest poll also has the Conservatives, if there were to be an election, only winning 4 seats. Oh, Lord. I'm sorry. 4 seats? Could you imagine? Who'd be beating them? Okay, Labour would be, I mean, that'd be ridiculous. That'd be too much. As a Labour supporter, I would say that'd be too much. The Lib Dems would have more seats than the Tories. The SNP would have way more seats than the Tories. The DUP would have more seats than the Tories. The DUP would be the big boys on the right-wing bloc in Parliament. That's mental. Could you imagine? Who would it be? That would be incredible. I haven't actually looked at the... It can't happen, of course. It can't happen. Could you imagine? But anyway, there may be some fine politics at play in Parliament, which means that Labour have some good reason not to present a confidence motion. But unless they know something I don't, I think the time might be right. On Monday, there's going to be a debate on whether there should be a general election. Now, this isn't like a serious debate. Well, it is a serious debate because it's in Parliament, but it's not like a main debate. It's come as a result of the petition that gathered over 500,000 signatures recently. I'm not sure many Tory MPs will attend. Some will, of course, some will. But the debate will happen with or without them. And it may be useful for Starmer to redirect pressure from Truss to the wider party. Right now, the best thing for Labour is that the Tories stick by Truss. Yeah, this is not going to happen, is it? I'll probably discuss the plans to oust her that have been reported in the second video today. In fact, a whole series of videos. We'll have to see which ones I can carry on with this weekend. Maybe tomorrow if something else elbows it out of the way. But Truss is going. The Tories are surely going to be a bit more careful about who replaces her, which also means she may not be... I mean, don't expect her to go next week, because the Tories have got to make sure they've got plans in place to make sure they don't make the same mistake again. You know, given who they replaced Johnson with, they don't really need to do the same again, do they? Frankly, it's probably in Labour's interest to throw a spanner in the works for Tory MPs who want to improve their fortunes. For most of this Parliament, Labour needed Johnson to be removed as soon as possible in order to get the leader of the Conservatives that was going to be taking them into the next election and work on them. That's all out of the window now, because they don't know who's going to lead them into the next election. If it's Truss, they will easily win. If it's someone else, it becomes more challenging, but Labour should still be favourites now, come what may. So Labour need to ignore Truss, keep the public turned off the Conservative Party in general. What better way to do that than to force Tory MPs to put themselves on record as having confidence in the leadership of Liz Truss at a time when no Prime Minister's had such a low popularity rating in modern times. Right now, there are quite a lot of Tory MPs hiding from this mess. They want later on to say, oh yeah, I was one of the ones working behind the scenes to remove Truss. Yeah, she was totally useless. Oh yeah, they're not Conservative at all, her government. I was dead against it. Say so. Say so. This would be a way of forcing them to say. A confidence vote forces them to do something on record. In reality, it forces them to vote for the Prime Minister. Only it's extra spicy here because there are some Tory MPs privately saying they'd have more chance of standing as an independent than a Conservative candidate under Truss. So what would ordinarily be seen as an unforgivable act of disloyalty in not voting in favour of their leader during a confidence vote may not be on this occasion. It'll depend, of course. Most Tory MPs will not actually want to let Labour sink Truss. They want to do it themselves. And most really don't want a general election. But it doesn't take that many. And some of them may even welcome a general election with this mess. They may actually just prefer to just leave it all. I wonder if Labour will maybe even talk to a few Tory MPs about the possibility of supporting such a motion in the interest of the country, but it could also be in their interest, because they may think, look, you know, if I'm not interested in this parliamentary rat race anymore, it might actually be not a bad move to leave Labour with this mess, this economic mess to sort out, and it'll reduce their chances of winning the next election. So, you know, there's all sorts of ifs and buts here. But like I say, unless there's some good reason not to, I can see a lot of advantage to Labour calling for a confidence vote next week. Truss is finished. That's certain now. There's no escaping this. It's not certain how the Tories proceed or how quickly, but she's done. What Labour need to do is make sure almost all Tory MPs are implicated in the mess and not just pin all the blame on a couple and absolve the rest of them. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.